Today we're going to show you how you can install an awesome epoxy floor using the dirty pour technique. All our kits are DIY friendly and our tutorials are easy to follow, so after watching this you'll be able to do it yourself. If you want to coat your floors, head over to our website and get your floor kit today.
Okay, we're getting ready to do this floor. We're going to mix up our WB primer. This is white. And I want to show you how to make a partial kit because this floor is only about 200 square feet. This kit, our 1.5 gallon kit of WB primer, will do 500 plus square feet. So we'll probably have a lot left over. But make sure the caps are secured and just mix it up a little bit just so that anything that's settled in this mix gets shaken up really well. Especially with the B, because our pigment is in the B. And just like the labels say, shake part B and part A, make sure the cap is secure, mix part A and part B together, and then once mixed, blend in 20 ounces of clean water. Now, this whole entire kit needs 20 ounces of clean water. So once you blend them together, you add 20 ounces of clean water. We're only doing half, so obviously we'll be doing 10 ounces of clean water. So instead of pouring 1 gallon of A out, I'm just going to do 2 quarts. And then of course 1 quart of the B. So I'll bring it up to 96 ounces or 3 quarts total. I'm going to use a smaller mixing paddle for this with an electric drill. You can mix it by hand. The stir sticks work really well for this. I'm not going to spin it fast, just really slow, just to blend it together. I'm going to blend this for about a minute, maybe 1.5 minutes. I'm going to go around the bottom. I'm going to scrape the bottom and the sides constantly as I'm moving up and down. Okay, now that I've got that mixed, I'm going to blend it a little bit and then add the 10 ounces of clean water. Okay, now that's ready to go. We'll get this to Tyler and he'll start rolling this out on the floor.
I'm going to walk you guys through installing our WB primer. First thing we want to do is we want to de-shed the rollers. I'm using a 3/8 snap roller and I want to run tape on it to get any of these loose hairs off. So how we like to do it, painter's tape, yellow stuff works the best because it's really sticky, and I'll just pull some out, step on it, and then I'm just going to run this on the tape and that's going to get any loose hairs off. And that's it. So now we have a de-shedded roller that's ready to go. So as you guys can tell, it's not a coincidence that we're going over this floor. It's not very cool looking. We're actually still looking for the guy that did it. He's nowhere to be found. So we're gonna actually coat over this and make it look absolutely beautiful by doing one of our dirty pour techniques on the actual floor. So it's gonna be a really cool process. It's gonna make this floor really unique. And so the first thing we did, I sanded it with 80 grit sanding screens, and then we did did a denatured alcohol wipe on the floor just to remove, any contaminations on it, anything like that. So we got it nice and clean, and now we're ready to prime. So I'm gonna roll off the primer, dip and roll, hit my edges, roll everything out nice and thin. We don't want thick spots of primer, and depending on how well this covers the white, some of these blue spots might show through. We might hit it again, we might not, just depends. But we're gonna be doing about 15 square foot a gallon on this floor because we're gonna be dumping product out and not really touching it. So it's gonna be a cool video. So I'll take a second, just kind of soak this roller up. And what I'm gonna do is just go around the perimeter, about half of the room, hit the perimeter, and then I'll just go wall to wall. And you always wanna start in the middle of wherever you're trying to coat. I wouldn't wanna just dip in that tray and then come here and start in a corner. I'm gonna have most of my product right there. By starting in the middle, I can kind of move it around, push it both directions, and it'll kind of even itself out. So that's pretty much it, guys. I'm just making sure I don't have any thick roller lines, roller edges, any thick spots. It's all rolled out really good. And if you guys have spots like you can see right here, it's kind of separating. Don't worry about that. You can come back out and we can roll that again, or I can get it maybe a couple feet out, hit that spot again, because the primer is a fast cure. It'll start to set up, get sticky, and then it won't separate like that. So it's just something that's on the floor that's kind of making that primer act a little different in there. But once it sets up and I roll over that again, it'll eliminate that. So don't worry about those, just keep going and kind of hit those if you see them. So I'll just finish the room out just like this, hit my edges, then go wall to wall. And then we'll let this set up for about an hour. You never want to wait more than about 2 hours of having the primer down to put your epoxy on it. So if you can't prime an epoxy within 2 hours, you shouldn't be priming. Wait till you can do the epoxy within at least 2 hours. But you can see how well it covers. We're going over a relatively dark floor with white primer, and it's covering amazingly with one coat.
Okay, we're going to do an amazing dirty pour floor, and we're going to attempt to use similar colors and try to get a similar look to that amazing wall that everyone loves. So the first thing we're going to do is mix up a pigmented white base coat so that the colors can flow easily over the surface of the floor. After that, we're going to make 3 separate batches for each dirty pour color. And then once I'm done mixing it, we're gonna put it in this bucket with a flatter edge, so hopefully it pours out a little bit wider than it does pouring out of a 5-gallon bucket. And yeah, hopefully this floor turns out absolutely phenomenal. I mean, we know it's gonna be beautiful, so it's gonna be fun pouring out of this flat red container. The first thing we're going to do again is mix up 1.5 gallons of the pigmented white. Now, just like we always do, I'm going to mix this for about a minute, minute and a half, scraping the sides and the bottoms with the drill, the paddle wheel itself, not going to scrape it with a stick. Then once I'm done doing that, I'm going to pour it into a brand new bucket and mix it for about 30 more seconds. Once I've done that, it'll be thoroughly mixed. That'll ensure we have no soft spots on the floor anywhere. If you pour it over too fast, remember to tip it back up for a second just to get anything out of that handle. And the white is always a little bit thicker than the clear because of the pigment that's added at our factory. So you want to give it a little more time than even the clear part A. Our resin is a 2-to-1, so it's 2 part A to 1 part B. The B is very fluid. Now when I'm mixing with this drill, as always, I'm gonna be mixing it fast. I'm gonna be inducing a lot of air into this mix. I don't really care about that. I'm not real concerned about bubbles getting induced into the mix because we've designed it to release those bubbles once it's on the floor and it starts leveling out and it starts self-marbleizing. Our resin is designed to get rid of those bubbles. So, gone to a real slow drip. Now for the hardener, the part B. Okay, now we'll pour this 1.5 gallons into a brand new bucket and scrape all the sides. There is always unmixed product on the sides and on the bottom of these buckets, always. That's why we pour into a second bucket and then scrape the sides into the middle of the second bucket. Because then the unmixed product is in the middle of the second bucket and we can now mix it in. But everything that's touching the sides of the second bucket has been mixed. Mix this for another 30 seconds. Okay, now this is ready to go. We'll give this to Tyler to start spreading out this base coat, and I will start mixing the rest of the colors.
All right, so first thing I'm gonna do, I'm gonna dump out that base coat of white, spread it out with a squeegee, and then I'll just roll it out with a roller real quick, and then by then Tim will probably have me my first batch to pour out of the bucket. So I'm gonna pour out beads all across the room, squeegee those, and then roll it real quick. And this needs to coat the whole floor, so don't want to pour too big of beads out in one spot. And then I can just tilt that bucket over, let it drain out because Tim used another bucket to mix it in. If you guys don't use another bucket, you never want to tip it upside down and let it all drain out. So this is just going to be a thin coat. So I just need to spread it out relatively thin and then I'll roll it. So you'll notice I'm holding it at an angle. If I hold it straight up and down, it's gonna pull too much product. As long as I hold it at an angle, I can apply a little bit of pressure, and it's always gonna leave epoxy behind. So when I start this roller, since it's dry, and make sure you de-shed it. I've already de-shedded it. I wanna start where I know it's thick, right? I can see thin spots. I don't wanna start rolling there. So it looks a little thicker here. I know it's a little thicker where I just moved product. And then we're just gonna roll wall to wall. This is gonna help even everything out. So you can see how just doing that really evened out the floor. Just real quick. And again, this coat's just for kind of slicking off that surface. So when we do the pours out of the bucket, the material can flow easier. There's no real surface tension from like a dry floor, right? It's all got epoxy on it now, so it'll be able to move easier. So that's it, guys. We're ready for the pour batches that Tim's making right now. When he has those hands to me, we'll start pouring it out. And we're gonna try to do a bunch of random patterns out here. It's gonna look really cool. All right, got the bucket, we're ready to do our pour. I'm gonna start just one section here. We're gonna go a bunch of different directions with each pour. Each batch is gonna have different colors, so I wanna make sure I get this batch in different areas of the floor. And I still have more that I can pour into here too that he's making. So we'll come out this way a little bit. All right, so these are still the same batch. I'm just pouring out of that bucket and getting smaller amounts. We want to get more of these patterns going on because those are absolutely beautiful. So we're just going to do some smaller ones. Again, we want to get this all over the floor, these colors. And when I get to the bottom, I'm just kind of slowing it down. letting it come out. And we still got some in the bucket that I can do some skinnier veins. And this doesn't really matter. Just might as well use it up. All right, so that was one batch. And again, the more random directions we go, it's gonna look really cool, but there's lots of ways you can pour it out. We could do it all the same kind of pattern, right? All throughout the room. You can even map out your design with like your squeegee, kind of run your pattern through it, which since we have a base coat and you can follow those designs. We're just kind of dumping it out, but it's gonna look really cool. We're getting some really awesome effects with these pours out of that bucket. All right guys, so we got it all laid out. It's still gonna level out a lot, but the majority of the floor is coated and we really didn't have to move it around anywhere. So really cool process. So now I'm gonna spritz it with denatured alcohol, small to medium drops. And then about 5–10 minutes later, I'm just gonna mist the floor with denatured alcohol, and that's gonna just make this thing lay out glass smooth. So I'm gonna wear a mask since we're in a small room. All right, so final step, I'm gonna just mist the floor with denatured alcohol. Just get a good fine mist over the whole surface, and that's gonna help release any bubbles that are left, but it's laid out pretty glass smooth. There's a few out here just from doing so many different pours over each other and stuff. So I'm gonna spray that now, wear a mask, and then we'll come back and show you guys how to apply the floor finish on this. All right guys, I'm gonna go over how to apply our floor finish. Epoxy's been down for about 2 days. You wanna make sure it's hard enough to where you're not leaving footprints, stuff like that. And if you wanna spot sand anything, if you have bubbles or debris or anything in it, you wanna reuse a really fine grit, like 320 grit, because this isn't like our urethane. It's not gonna hide those scratches as much unless you do multiple layers, which is okay. But typically we wanna do 3, 4, maybe even 5 coats, thin coats. And this will make that floor really shiny, and then that's gonna be your wear surface. So instead of doing the urethanes, you can do the floor finish and get that glass smooth finish at a fraction of the cost compared to doing like a flood coat of epoxy. So this is why we have our floor finish. It's designed to be a sacrificial coat to protect the metallic floors and to give you that high gloss, glass smooth finish. So I'm gonna go over how to apply it. Really simple. We're gonna be using a microfiber mop. You can get these at most janitorial places. I think Home Depot sells these also. And then we're just gonna be pouring out piles, moving wall to wall, and doing thin coats. If we put it on too thick, it can stay like a milky white. So we wanna go thin coats, multiple coats, and it dries within about half an hour, 45 minutes. You should be able to do that second coat depending on the temperature. So we'll get right to it. And again, this is really simple. It's a single component, we don't have to mix it. We're simply gonna dump it out, mop it around, work our way out the room. So we're gonna pour out a little pile to get that pad soaked up. So we got the pile poured out. It'll take a little bit of material to get this soaked up. It's always good to get it nice and soaked up before we start. We don't wanna have any dry spots out here. And then we're just gonna work edge to edge. And this is just like a flat microfiber mop. So all I'm doing is just going wall to wall. Once I get that spread out, I'll pour a little bead. Once I get it going, I'll start in the middle of the room. Just pour a little bead out. And I don't want to go too far. I don't want to pour the whole room out because it'll start to set up on you. So we'll just do sections at a time. And then make sure you're overlapping, that we don't have any missed spots. And then we just kind of complete that process, continue it throughout the floor. And you'll notice I never go and stop out in the middle. If you have to stop out in the middle, or you always want to do solid motion, right? Never just stop and then move on, because you'll see that line. So always just continuously move. But as long as you're going wall to wall, you shouldn't have to really do that. So now that I'm kind of at the end, I'm gonna work my way back. We'll just do a little pile there. When you guys are done with your first coat or other coats, just put it in a garbage bag. That way the air doesn't get to it, and you can reuse this multiple times before you have to clean it. So when you're done with doing all your coats, clean it and you can use it next time. A few other things. You obviously want to wait till this is hard enough, right? We don't want to walk on it when it's wet. So let this dry out enough. Like I said, anywhere from 45 minutes to an hour, you should be able to apply another coat. And then this is not gonna be as durable as our urethanes, but if you want that glass smooth finish, this is a great option. Super easy to apply, and it's quick. And so this can be basically your maintenance coat for the floors, and you can also burnish this as well when it gets scuffed up and stuff after doing multiple coats, and that'll bring that shine right back.